And there was a 40-year-old woman, I don't know where, don't know her name, who had died during a C-section from preeclampsia on the same drugs I was on. I don't know if it was IVF or not. Same drugs, already had another baby, and I got it middle of the night. I get this call. So Anthony, I was like, nope, we're done. I am 30 years old. I am breastfeeding right now. I would be 40 in the next, if I did another transfer. I would be 40. I'd be that person dead on the table.
Welcome to the Dr. Gill Show. This is where we talk about medical matters that matter to you. My guests today are Leslie and Anthony Desha. Welcome to the show, you two.
Hello. Thanks for having both of us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. A plus one.
What me?
Plus one to Leslie.
Leslie and Anthony are colleagues and friends here in mid-Missouri. They are the hosts of a local chapter, I guess I could call it, of the Infertility Support Group called Resolve. Resolve calls himself the National Infertility Association. They're headquartered in McLean, Virginia, and they started in 1974, apparently. They are not only a support group for couples and individuals going through infertility, but they're also advocates for insurance and legislation and all this stuff that broadly and generally assist people experiencing infertility.
Yeah.
So, Leslie, how long have you been a host of the local Resolve chapter?
I think we decided we're going on our third year probably, that we've kind of done the mid-Missouri one, and of course in Columbia, Missouri had chapters in St. Louis and Kansas City. I think in Springfield from what I can remember when I first started, but there wasn't anything local to us.
And those are all 2 hours away.
Yeah. And this was kind of pre-COVID. So, it was so you're kind of like, obviously I'm not going to drive to St. Louis on like a Tuesday to join a group of people I didn't know about, doctors I didn't know we were talking about, so kind of was like, let's start our own. But that was after quite a bit of history on our own parts of why we decided to start it. And I always preface my background is not social work. My background is not therapy. My background is not counseling. So,
what is your background?
I'm a nursing background.
You're a nurse practitioner, in fact.
Yes.
So you're a medical professional.
Yes. So while going through all of our infertility treatments, I was a nurse, and everyone says, you hear these theories of like, oh, just take your mind off stuff and you'll get pregnant. So
Right.
I literally told Anthony, I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll go to nurse practitioner school. That'll keep me occupied.
Oh.
And I was like, okay, I'm terrible at school. Once I fail out, then that's it. Okay. And then I graduated.
Yeah. And now you work on a transplant team at the local university.
Yeah. So I do kidney transplant. I'm kind of like a coordinator, liaison, see patients, write scripts, that sort of fun stuff. But yeah, so it's kind of my distraction, quote unquote, from my fertility journey to try and get pregnant was nurse practitioner school.
Gotcha.
And it still didn't work. These whole, put your legs up, distract yourself. It did not work for us.
A pillow. Yeah.
Yes.
The pillow tray.
Yes.
Now, Anthony, you own or the co-owner of a local pharmacy called Flo's Pharmacy.
Yeah. I've been doing it since I was 16 years old. I got started in it just through college, continued to work, and then my current partner offered me the job up here to come work for him. I came work for him, then bought in to Flo's, and then we expanded it to a second location. Then I've since expanded into Holt Summit with another location.
Wow. So you intimately know the world of pharmacy. A lot of these fertility treatments require drugs, let's call them, pharmaceuticals. That's a whole subject unto itself.
Yeah.
But you're familiar with all the intricacies and the complexities of getting fertility drugs, which sometimes hard to get, and often very expensive.
Yeah, getting them, and then when you do, and as you're aware, like the last 6 months, Clomid, Pregnyl, those things have skyrocketed in price.
Yeah.
And no one has an answer as to why. We get the price and they come to us and we.
Well, the whole deal about how generic drugs come to market, where the price point is, where the profit margins are. I mean, these companies are searching for profits, And if they don't see one, they'll drop it, even though we need the medicine. They just drop it from production. It's a frustrating time. But anyway, I wanted to bring up your backgrounds because that gives you really a unique perspective on the fertility world. Being a healthcare professional, a pharmaceutical business person, makes you really a tremendous resource.
Yeah, and I think to that, and like our experience is, we're not dumb, and we went into our fertility treatments still not knowing a dang thing because I'm not a fertility nurse at the time.
Right.
Anthony isn't a fertility specialist pharmacy.
Right.
So there was all these pieces that, you're like, oh, you're a nurse. You should know what these levels should be for fertility.
No.
We did not know those things. So
creatinine. That's a kidney function. Yes, you're an expert on that.
Dialysis, yeah.
Right.
So when this came to play, because since we're not dumb, we were trying to seek out the best resources we could, not just Google, because we know the rights and the wrongs, but we didn't know this avenue particularly of transplant. So that's how even more frustrating it was, and how much lack of information we could find on our own. So it was kind of another pillar of needing to start something on our own, we thought.
Yeah. I love when people say, I'm going to do some research. And yeah, it's research, but really it's rabbit hole chasing on Google.
You can find whatever you want.
Research is a clipboard and some mice and some statistics and peer review. That's research. So I would call it maybe self-education, and we can go down these rabbit holes. And the internet goes back to the early 2000s. So you've got 20 years of information, some of it old and out of date and not accurate, some of it misleading, some of it from people who are not experts. So you don't know what you're getting. It's free, and you get what you pay for. So I'm going to interject right off the bat that I think this conversation is really important between us, because I've already asked you. You don't mind me saying, both of us, your couple, my couple, me and my wife, have used IVF to complete our families because we had infertility issues, and it is a whole nother world. And I can tell you something: when you're the fertility doctor on this side of the desk, it's very different from being the patient on that side of the desk, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So, without going into too much personal detail, when did you realize you're going to need some help and some advanced reproductive technology and services?
Well, I think from my family side, my parents had me and my sister. I have a younger sister who's only 20 months younger than me, pretty late in life. They were married very young, but had us very late in life. That kind of told me there's probably some infertility issues there. And then I had aunts and uncles that either had no kids or had one kid. So just kind of never added up to maybe there was something, maybe even familial going on. And then we got married when we were 30. And since my mom had probably some fertility issues, I was always touted as the miracle baby.
So there was an inkling. You had a feeling there was something else here.
And, we were born in 1985. My mom always said there was no one knew when she went into labor. My mom did not want her own mother to know because she thought I'd come out stillborn.
Oh, my goodness.
She had so much loss.
So she bottled it up.
And still to this day, I've tried to get her to come to our group to give her side, and maybe this could be genetic and da-da-da. Right. And she still can't open up. I'll call her on the phone and she'll say, I'm like, Mom, can you come talk? Or Mom, do this. And she'll oh, your dad remembers better than me. And she'll hand the phone to my dad.
Yeah.
And my dad was sure at appointments with her, but, I'm asking my mom. And
different culture, different worldview, different time.
Yeah. And she has no medical background. She was a teacher forever.
Uh-huh.
So maybe she did know or didn't know. It was overwhelming. She had a lot of loss, blocking out trauma. I'm not sure. But so anyways, I kind of knew a little bit of the history from her. We got married when we were 30. And of course, as the world totes us, 35 is this horrible age.
Advanced maternal age.
You become geriatric.
I haven't heard the word geriatric, which I strongly object to, but
Yeah. So we were married. We lived a good life, we wanted to travel and da-da-da-da. So we kind of knew that 35 number was coming. I just didn't, my mom ended up having 13 years of infertility was kind of their track, my mom and dad's. And I was like, well, obviously we can't just live our lives on it at 30 years old, 30 or 13 more years of infertility.
Then you'd be really geriatric.
Yeah. So I kind of got off birth control quickly and then just had no periods. That's when I was like, oh, this is probably not good. I was excited not having periods, but then my whole body was changing. So come to find out, I think there was a little PCOS that I'm the textbook picture of PCOS, but some PCOS that was a little probably hidden because I'd been on birth control for so long.
Yeah.
I just never took a break from it. And then I ended up having, I was like going to go get all my checkups, make sure all my levels were good, yada, yada, yada. And I ended up having teratoma on an ovary. So they took the whole ovary out. And at that point, I was, another couple years into that, pushing that 35 number. So I was like, well, that would cut my eggs in half automatically. So I was like, all right.
You're experiencing headwinds. Oh, my goodness.
So we're just like full speed ahead.
So, Anthony, was this frustrating for you, or you just kind of going with the flow? What were your feelings as the specter of infertility started getting bigger and bigger?
I feel like, and when I talk to people at the pharmacy, it's like men have a different outlook on it. I was always like, yeah, I wanted kids, but it was never that emotional. I think for me, it was like, I want kids, but if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Kind of thing. And just we'll play it by ear. But then when it takes a toll on her, it takes a toll on, you could see her going through, her body's just going through crazy stuff, changes emotionally, mentally. And then that's when I was like, oh, this is a pretty big deal. This isn't just like it's going to happen or it's not going to happen. That was like what she wanted in life. And we didn't know with her parents, we knew they went through it, but they didn't open up until we started talking about it and like, hey, maybe just having sex won't get us a child. There's more to this. And that's when her mom was like, yeah, we went through it. And that's when I think we started realizing, okay, we need to take more steps. And like she said, she had one of her ovaries taken out.
Yes.
So for me, it wasn't as emotional of a roller coaster, but I also, and she can vouch for this, I'm not a very emotional person. I'm a very, blinders on. I just put my head down and go to work. I find
like
other
you were
avenues.
just kind of like in my back seat. Like I was doing all this and you're just
there's something to be said. Mars and Venus. We are different creatures, and everybody's different. Some guys are leading the charge and they're kind of bringing the woman along. Yeah. But this is not an uncommon thing. And you love your wife and you see she's going through problems. So it's not that you're not interested. You just kind of come at it from a different angle.
Yeah. And I think for him, he didn't know what he didn't know. Yeah. Like I remember we were on a vacation driving home from the airport in St. Louis. I don't know if you remember this. We were on the highway driving home from St. Louis, the airport. And Anthony was like, yeah, I just thought you just had sex and you got pregnant. And I'm like, we went to the same high school. We're the same teachers. You own businesses. You're not dumb. Right. And if you don't know this, how many people don't know this? Right. And that's like, I know this, I'm a woman. But I had nursing school, whatever. But like, You're not dumb and you still didn't know this. And so that was, and your parents didn't speak of even the birds and the bees or education about it, let alone the school system. So it was... He didn't learn about this until we fell into this. Yeah. And I know that you're not the only one.
So you realized you needed IVF. You did IVF, got pregnant, had a baby, I believe. When did you decide to start sharing your experience, your hope, what you had to share with other people? When did you realize, hey, I can come into the Resolve group or start a local group and help my fellows?
I remember that conversation because she was like, I'm going to start this group. And I love Leslie. We've been together forever. We're high school sweethearts, but I know how she works. And I said, this is not just like a hobby that you take on that in 6 months you can dissolve said hobby. I was like, this is something that there may not be anybody in your group for 6 months, but you have to do these meetings. Right. Even if there's one person, you have to do the 30-minute meeting. And this is a lifetime commitment, most likely. And, we go back and forth because she would get mad at me. She's like, I know what I'm doing. And I was like, I just want you to be aware that this isn't something you can jump into and then just say, I'm tired of doing it, because these are people's lives. And like, look what we went through. And she just had a passion. She's like, I'm going to do it. And even to this day, sometimes she'll get on the meetings and there'll be two people or one person or nobody.
December, we had nobody. And
And she'll do it again the next month. And she is very persistent. And it's been 3 years. You can go ahead. But
about 3 years. So that's a beautiful thing.
When did you know?
Well, and when we were going through it, and I've never been the type, whatever could be wrong with me, wrong with my dog, whatever. I'm never the type to go on Google and be like, what's going on? And oh gosh. I always make a doctor's appointment or, consult the experts, if you will. I don't do the Google stuff. And to know that there was no one I knew of to kind of lean on or ask questions about without a general, of course, an appointment or something. I was just getting information from randos on the internet. And I had gone to a local meeting for a group that's here in town, and it just wasn't what I was seeking at the time. And I didn't feel that if I'm in that boat, I'm sure other people are in that boat.
So I want to say this right now. Resolve is not the only game in town. I know of at least one other group here in town founded by one woman in particular who's been through her own challenges and difficulties, and out of the goodness of her heart, she has started a support group that involves not just infertility, but let's say losses, stillbirths, miscarriages, all this related stuff. And these are just wonderful, just beautiful things, labors of love that people do. So Resolve isn't the only game in town, but it's certainly a national association with a tremendous reputation. So about 3 years ago, you realized there was a lack. There was a missing Resolve chapter here, support group, and you jumped in. So what did you do? Call them up?
Literally got online. I think, yeah. So we had our kid in 2019, and I think I've heard someone else in the community was going to start a group or have some sort of support. And I was like, okay, cool. I don't have to do it. And I said, this wasn't my passion. I just felt there was something missing that, no one's going to do it. Come on, someone's got to do it.
Yeah.
And that's how we kind of had my child, did the whole breastfeeding, pumping, out of COVID happened. And I was like, this person never followed through, and there was never a group. And I was like, still, it's been time now.
You were called.
Yeah.
You felt the calling.
I was like, Anthony, that person still didn't do it. I guess I got to do it. And then, Resolve. Since I don't have a background, I don't know what I'm doing with all this. This is all
but don't downplay your experience, Leslie. Going through IVF and all the injections and the retrieval and all this kind of stuff, it gives you incredible real world experience.
Yeah,
so,
and that's all I wanted to do was hold a platform for other people to just talk about it. If you don't feel like sharing it to X, Y, and Z in your life, and Resolve has, I don't know the question. I'm big on if I don't know the answer, I will find it out for you. Resolve has so many resources.
They've got a good website.
Great website.
Lots of resources there.
Great people who are leading the charge and that whole community of it all. So I just wanted, and I'm not afraid to share my story. I want Anthony to share his story because there's a lack, obviously, on kind of the male point of view of fertility.
Yeah. Our stories need to be told and understood.
Yeah, and he's no stranger to sharing his side. From my belief, even at work, even in his personal life, I feel. So I kind of come on, help me out, and
so I just want to finish this story. So you emailed them?
Yeah, you can literally
Did you get on the horn with somebody, talk to somebody, or they send you some electronic form, you signed it, and you were the host?
Yeah, I think it was click this tab if you want to have a group. And I did, and they set me up with a volunteer coordinator, and she kind of walked me through it. And there's really no storyboard of how you should hold a group. It's just kind of do what you want. You're a part of us. We're a part of you. Whatever you need from us, we'll support you.
So some are in person? Are they all in person?
My
or all
groups,
online?
Yeah, so he's kind of started in person. We rented a room at the university just because that's how I could find a private room. Height of COVID.
The height of COVID, and it's the second Tuesday of every month.
Second Tuesday of every month.
So you got a room, you got a space, you got a time.
Yeah,
then how'd you let people know?
Yeah, so I started a pretty good Facebook group. Of course,
okay.
Facebook does everything. We have I feel, a pretty active Facebook group. Right now we're over 200 members on our group. And just posting all kinds of stuff. But if you just go to Resolve too, you can click your state, and have the chapters that are in your area.
Yeah, that's how I learned there's 4.
Yeah, I'm the Columbia one. I do get a lot of people wanting to join me from South Carolina because there's a Columbia, South Carolina group.
Yes.
I have to email you all the time. This is Missouri. But,
yes.
So like you can kind of submit your information through the website from Resolve, and then I kind of direct you from there to Facebook, because that's just where I have my links for the Zooms and the meetings and times and more information.
Must have been tough having an in-person meeting during the COVID pandemic.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of nice. I think it was kind of nice.
So we separated.
What do you mean you separated?
It was a big room.
Oh, not you too. You mean
no,
physical separation.
Yeah, we had people like
got
every
your 6 feet
chairs.
or whatever.
Oh,
it was.
yeah.
Your 2 meters. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it kind of got to be, because it was COVID, that was always a good reason to just go back to Zoom. But we had Zoom playing at the time while we met in person. And people were traveling from Jeff City, Moberly, and stuff, I think, for those meetings. But all the other like local community rooms were shut down, like the library. So I was using the university on the campus, and just parking was awful. Getting to the room was awful. So we kind of like let's scrap it in person until things kind of opened up. So we've been doing Zoom since then. And actually, that's been pretty good with
Zoom's
the weather.
Out.
The weather going on.
Now, when somebody comes to a meeting, are there dues or?
Absolutely not.
So it's absolutely free.
Way. This is,
and it's a labor of love from you. No one's paying you. You're giving your time, your resources, your gas in the tank.
Yeah, I don't want to collect money. I'm not going to fundraise. I have no reason to have anybody's money. This is just the place for people to air grievances, share joys, frustrations.
You've done
anything.
She's done a good job too. I'm amazed at how like every week or every month she had somebody different. Like she would try to go to different clinics and find different clinics. She would find, like, I think you had a urologist speak one time. You had
so you bring in experts,
and that's
like
how
just to talk, like just chit chat.
Wonderful.
Like, this is his side of it.
Wonderful.
I brought in experts. That's what I wanted, because I was like, I don't want to talk for an hour. Like, I don't know what to say to these people.
Right.
I don't want this. So I'd bring in experts. Yes, I had someone from people from all over the country, obviously, too, with Zoom. We've had an embryologist expert who's got a good Instagram following. I've had a embryo donation, adoption organizer. We've had adoption people. So we're trying to hit every angle. And like I said, I want this to be a place for expert information, not just Reddit.
I'm going to say this again. What a labor of love. That this is what a gift you're giving back to the community. So now can we start talking about some typical questions people have, typical difficulties? I'm sure there's the newbies getting in, realizing, gee, I'm going to need some help. Then we go into getting into the real tough stuff, and then the nitty gritty of all the injections and meds, and maybe the miscarriages possibly that could happen later. So let's kind of walk through these little categories and what you have to offer, and maybe give our audience some little pearls of advice and wisdom, maybe as we talk about them. So let's start out with the newbie. Like, oh my God, I'm having sex. I got married. I stopped my pills. I'm not getting pregnant. Well, and they just can't believe this is happening to them.
Yep.
So what are some typical?
Talk about it.
Make an appointment.
Yeah, I think that's my biggest thing, and that's what I like with her and I is like, talk about it. Like, I don't care. Like, yeah, it's awkward. Yeah, this is taboo. The people think it's taboo, but it's like, just talk about it, and that's why we're so open about it, because I want people to be like, don't be ashamed to talk about it. Like,
right.
Let's get it out there. Like, I think it's 1 in 4 people have the problem, or more than that.
Possibly. 1 in 6, it seems to be going up.
Yeah, and it's like, let's talk about it. I want people to be aware that there is an issue, and like she says, make an appointment. What's that going to hurt to go see? Yeah. All
right. So I think that doesn't get enough attention. There is no stigma. And my analogy is, I don't know if you've ever gone to the post office and seen the people's faces up there for federal crimes, right? That's an embarrassment.
Yeah,
that's an embarrassment, right? You're not. It's not like you have a mugshot and a number under your face. This is just a common problem.
And I get people coming to the pharmacy, and they'll say, don't tell anybody, that you saw me here.
Plain brown paper wrapper.
Yeah. A, I legally can't, and B, I never would. Like, But talk about it. Like, be open. Because the more people talk about it, the less there is attached to it. And we can...
Yeah. So that's a great example. So you lead by example right off the bat. Somebody comes to your meeting, they can see, hey, everybody's talking about it. No big deal.
Yeah, I just want people to feel comfortable. This is a safe place. To get into our Facebook group, you have to agree to not share any of like health information, obviously, from people who log on. Shoot, if you get on Zoom, you can turn your camera off. You don't even have to say anything. Like,
right.
Just join if you want to hear people that you're not alone in this. Is how I take it. Like, I just don't want you to feel alone. I felt alone. That's why I started this group. I felt alone in my own family because no one could talk about this. I don't want you to feel alone. So come to Zoom, turn your camera off. I don't care.
Yeah, especially this is huge. Like you say, newbies. Like, yeah, get on the website and listen to or ask a question. Say, hey, what are my first steps? And it's crazy how great people are. Like, do this, this, and this.
So you help them with the first steps, some general infertility advice that you've learned. And once again, as a nurse practitioner, you can give some excellent advice. So you've got somebody, they need some help. You suggest they make an appointment with some experts, get some help with their OBGYN. Then they're in the middle of it. Now, some people get lucky. They do one cycle, they get pregnant. It happens maybe 20% of the time. The doctor or the treatment addresses the problem. It's a simple problem like ovulation. Right. Woman ovulates and all of a sudden everything works. They're out of there. But then some people get into the treatment and it's not happening. Mm-hmm. It's not happening. Mm-hmm. So how do you...
frustrations are growing.
Oh, and the frustration's growing.
Hatred towards your spouse is growing.
Growing. Oh, we lose. Listen, in my practice, we lose 2 or 3 marriages a year.
Oh, I believe it.
Oh, yeah, it breaks them up.
We joked, and I mean, this is, like I said, we're very open about it, but I used to joke and say, I felt like a stud horse. You know, that you're there for one reason, and at that time, she was working nights, I was working days, and it was, okay, we had this schedule. We have 30 minutes. I would wake up when she came home. We have to have sex here. And then the same time that night. And it's so regimented that it takes the fun and the excitement out of being a couple.
Romance is gone.
Yeah.
The stud horse. Wow.
Yeah.
And that's we talk about a lot because we have been through, like, if there's a gamut of things, we've been through it. And like when people come down and talk to me, and it's always funny because the first time they do their IUIs, they're just giddy and excited and they're just like, it's going to work. And, I just say, it's, be patient. Keep stress levels down jokingly.
Right.
But even with IVF, I tell people, like, we did 5 IUI treatments, weren't successful. We've done 4 IVF treatments. Transfers, 2 of which were successful. We had a child. 1 we lost, and 1 just didn't take. So it's like, it's such a frustrating thing because every body is different. Yeah. And there's no one IUI might work for you.
Right.
I tell people it's frustrating. You just have to, the end is worth it.
All right. So that's one of the pieces of advice you give them. Hey, the road may be long, but keep your eye on the prize.
Yeah.
Any other tidbits or pearls do you have for people undergoing treatment and it's not happening right away?
Well, I always say it's like a puzzle piece. And actually our logo is a puzzle missing piece of a pregnant woman. Anyways, but it really is. It's like a mystery. You might respond to this medication. Your clinic may have a protocol for this stuff, but this medication may respond better. You have to kind of be the advocate for yourself and regroup. It is so important. You could easily get on that IUI cycle over and over. Get my period, call a clinic, get my period, whatever.
Right.
But if you I know it's horrible and almost sounds impossible, just take a breath. Not wait a cycle even. Just take a breath. Regroup with your husband, your spouse, your partner, and just have a discussion, make an appointment again with the clinic and say, I'm frustrated. Can we try a different avenue? Whatever. There are so many different moving pieces to this that might fit you if you try something different. Try this road, try that road.
That's a great piece of advice, Leslie. Be your own advocate. Yeah. There are clinics, let me just say this broadly. There are clinics out there that make a decision for Mrs. Jones. She needs IUIs. We're going to do 6 IUIs and see what happens. And then you don't see the doctor for 6 months. And then 6 months later, if you're not pregnant, they'll go, oh, she needs blah, blah, so-and-so months of this, or blah, blah, blah. And then you don't see them again. They're not iteratively reevaluating, taking stock. So you make a very good point. Advocate for yourself. And I like couples to take, or even ourselves, to take stock every cycle.
Yeah.
Open-minded communication.
What did we learn? We can make little tweaks.
Absolutely.
Perhaps, and learn from these cycles, and it can evolve. You don't have to be stuck into one
and
treatment.
You can easily get on that hamster wheel.
Yes, the hamster wheel.
I'm working. I need my ultrasound. Keep going. Try again. And if you just pause that hamster wheel just to reevaluate for a hot second, just see what other. And that's another thing you can come to our group for is post that question in our group. Be like, I've done this. Like, I'm frustrated. I'm to this point. So many people, people all over this community, or even we have Kansas City, St. Louis people in our group, just because I might know them, who might have just another point of view. Ask the question. So
that's another thing. This is great. This is great, folks. Practical information that's actionable here. Don't be afraid to ask some questions. Put it out there in one of these, like the Resolve group, where you can be, semi-confident. No one's sharing your information.
Yeah. Internet.
Internet's internet, and then they know everything about us anyway. But not to be too cynical, at least you can share your issues within a safe group and get some feedback that might be helpful. Anything else for people in the middle of fertility treatment? All right.
Yeah. You just got to stick it out.
I know. A lot of people don't realize that the rate of miscarriage or failure, miscarriage, ectopic, some kind of disaster is about 1/3. Like people say, oh, your job is so wonderful and you're helping so many people. It's like, well, 2/3 is joy and about 1/3 is tragedy. Do you do much work with women having miscarriages? Does that come up?
Yeah, and a lot of people within the group, as the fertility history of people, a lot of it is repeated miscarriages that cause you to head down the infertility track of seeing an REI. And myself has had a miscarriage, so I can relate at least on that kind of point very early on, but still experienced it. We've experienced a failed transfer, so I can speak to that from for our members, participants. And a lot of, I can probably vouch, I would say 80%, 90% of our group members have had some sort of miscarriage or loss. Yeah. Just because that comes with the territory.
So that people need to realize that this is very common.
Yeah.
It's very common. It's not just you. They are traumatic. My wife had 1 million miscarriages. Right. I can tell you. And you don't get used to this stuff. I tell people it cuts you in a new place. It's a fresh wound.
I can't
every time.
For the woman, when she had her miscarriage. I was I had no idea what it entailed and what I could vividly photographic memory. Too much information, but didn't know anything about it. But in the shower,
I didn't either.
The amount of blood.
I didn't either.
It's a bloody, crampy mess. Yeah. At 3 a.m. usually, the worst time you can imagine. You're driving.
I was swimming.
Yeah.
Oh.
Swimming with my son and my mother. My mother, who had 1 million miscarriages herself, and she knew exactly what was going on. And I was like, I didn't know how bad it was going to get.
Yeah.
She's like, I'll take care of your kid. I had to go to the hospital. I lost so much blood, actually. But my mom was like, oh, yeah, I know.
I can't imagine the havoc it wreaks on her emotionally. Like I said, I was there. But just the photographic memory, the being in the ER, it was just takes you back, and it's haunting. And I can see why people would want to give up after that, because it's a traumatic event. And that's why I tell people, don't give up. The end result is... words can't put into words when you have that child, what all that it all meant something. That makes sense.
Oh, it absolutely does, Anthony. It absolutely does. Yeah, another story. I've heard a woman, she's a teacher. She's in front of her second grade class and starts to miscarry. It happens at the worst time. Mm-hmm. And you don't forget these things. Mm-hmm. You don't forget them. They get smaller over time. Yeah. And if we're somewhat well-adjusted, if we have some tools, if we have support, they fade into the background. But as long as you have memory cells, they don't go away.
Yeah.
Wow. So Now we have a couple, they've tried the low tech, the inseminations, the medicines. Now that's not working, or they're miscarrying, or they have the ectopic, a pregnancy grows in the tube, tries to kill her, and say, oh my goodness, we're going to need IVF. What is that like for a woman or a couple?
I think to make that decision is huge. I think personally going through it isn't as huge as the decision being made around it. I personally think. You get a shot here or there, when you do your IUIs, yes, your injection shots increase exponentially with IVF. When we made that decision, it felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders, personally.
It was a relief in a way.
Absolutely.
How about you?
Yes, we weren't guaranteed anything, but to make that decision was a relief.
How about you, Anthony?
Yeah, I feel like when we made the decision, her whole demeanor changed. And I think just like, I don't know what the numbers are, but I feel like we felt more comfortable, like we might get somewhere farther with IVF as opposed to like, and that's why I always tell people, financially, it looks like a lot. But if you break it down, okay, X $15,000 for the build up for your first child.
Right.
But then each subsequent child is a small amount. And I just try to tell people that. I said, it's hard to explain in words, but once we made that decision, I feel like, on her, a weight was lifted, and it was like, we're going to do this. This is how we're going to do it. And it was well worth it. No,
good for you. You make a real important point. Now, I describe IVF as the supercar, the Lamborghini. You get what you pay for. Yeah. And IUI insemination is kind of like the general Ford or Chevy car. But we have this high-performance vehicle over here. Yeah, it costs more, but 0 to 60, lateral Gs, whatever you want to talk about performance, there it is. Another thing that people don't realize is IVF means they're making embryos. It means in vitro fertilization. Doesn't mean you're getting pregnant. IVF is to make embryos.
Yes.
And nowadays, they're almost always frozen, good forever maybe. And where we get pregnant are the transfers later. So in an ideal world, we do IVF once and then have enough for transfers down the line. So it gave you hope. That I didn't expect you to say that. That's really good to know that, hey, we want the Lamborghini here. We're getting the F1 Formula car. And now we've got some hope because now we're going to high performance.
Yeah.
Wow.
And on my mind, I was like, of course, I was approaching that 35, and that was such a haunted number in my brain. I was like, get the eggs out. I do not care. Get these eggs out of me.
Out of here.
And we'll do whatever with them later. Like, get them out. Because at the time, obviously didn't grow an embryo or a ovary, but I had one ovary, and I was like, get these out of me now. Juice me up, take them out.
So there was some urgency.
Yeah. For me, yes.
And it felt good. It felt good to get.
We finally had the resources
get going
financially to do it. So it was, there's some family assistance on that end.
Sure.
But, a lot of, very much sympathy and empathy that I feel towards, our parents who helped us out with this. But, like my parents had issues as well. They totally understood and were more than
this wasn't an option
willing to listen. Yeah.
Right. Wasn't there.
Yeah.
Now you bring up a great point. I'm so glad you did. People that love you want to help.
Yeah.
And
especially
there is
for a grandkid.
For a great, yes. And I see it all the time. The couple's usually it's a couple having trouble having a kid, and all of a sudden they're on my IVF list. Where'd that come from? Grandma got out the checkbook. She's got a retirement fund. She's only got so long on this earth, and she wants a grandkid. Yeah. And, granted, some people don't have the family resources, but there's no shame in asking, is there?
Yeah.
I tell people, and when we were going through it, before we realized that they were going to help us, I don't know, we can mention, but I was, I work 50 hours a week probably.
You're a hardworking guy, Anthony.
I was like, I'm going to get a job at Starbucks. Starbucks covers infertility treatments. I was like, I will work 5 a.m. to 8 a.m.
For 6 months, right?
For 6 months.
You become vested in their infertility insurance.
And that's what I tell people. I say, look, Google, you work for Google. You work for Starbucks. There are companies out there that do it. You just have to, you're just going to have to put the effort in. And I feel like when you go to IVF, and your doctor said it best, your OBGYN, she said, when you have a child with IVF, you'll treat them differently than anyone else will treat, because
she said you'll go to
of
PTAs
the sweat equity.
Different.
You look at that child different because it took so much to get that child.
Yeah, it wasn't just some accident or expected.
Yeah. It was
a lot
blood,
of
sweat,
work.
and tears. Yeah,
Wow, and I believe, and you may know this better than I, recently, I think it was Missouri, it's a lot of state workers, not a lot, but there are some state workers who now have insurance that covers IVF.
Yeah.
I think the federal employees do. Yeah.
It was a federal employee thing. Yeah, I'm quite ignorant about insurance.
I don't think Missouri is going to happen for a while, but we're trying.
But on a federal level.
Yes.
And that's another thing Resolve does.
Yes.
Advocates for coverage.
Yes.
And fertility services.
Yes. Last year I participated, and it was all Zoom, so it made it easy. In their Advocacy Day, which is, I think it's May 3rd this year. They completely outlined for you. There's people working hard at Resolve with the government to advocate and lobby for different bills are getting passed for adoption, veterans, same-sex couples, LGBTQIA community, and state coverage. So they have a whole support. And right now I'm going to work on I'm on the committee for under-supported states or underrepresented states like Missouri, who's very conservative. So we're trying to boost that a little bit.
Yeah. I saw a news cast last night about something I've been aware of. China had a one-child policy for a long time, and that generation is now expected to have babies. And it turns out the population of China is about to crater. They're about to lose maybe 400 million people in the next 20, 30 years. Because you can't just fix it. You can't just say have more babies because there aren't enough people to have babies to have more babies. Yeah. It takes generations and generations to reverse these things. And in fact, in the United States, we've seen a decrease in the birth rate. And we have limited resources on this planet. And we don't want to, overpopulate the planet. But in fact, we really need to think about maintaining our fertility. Because once you squash fertility, it takes a long time to come back. We need people to be fertile and to multiply.
Do you think there's like an uptick in infertility because of something we're doing in the world?
Yep.
Or more people just have internet and know the resources are out there?
Well, one interesting public policy thing, you wonder, the things that influence the health or public policy, like getting sanitation, sewage, clean water. These have enormous impacts on fertility. Turns out electricity, when you electrify a village in India, the birth rate goes way down because they have something else to do at night. So there's enormous things. So so there's these huge, powerful forces. But I think more pointedly, is our modern environment toxic and whatnot? And I believe we are seeing this certainly with sperm numbers and whatnot. I mean, it's very obvious some guys have what I call toxic employment. They're welders or they're mechanics or they're working around. Yeah, I learned something here in the Midwest. There is an actual profession called an applicator.
What is that?
An applicator, generally a guy who goes around spraying fields with all these chemicals. All this guy does is spray pesticide and herbicide and fungicide and chemicals. That's all they do.
Breathe it in all
They're
day.
breathing in all day, every day. And it's pretty clear, especially as women are in the workforce and are working their way up the corporate ladder. I mean, you can't reach full partner in a law firm with kids. It's almost impossible. I mean, can it be done? Yeah. But yeah, so our lifestyles and toxic exposures are clearly decreasing fertility. A great topic. So now you have a couple, let's say they've been working with you in Resolve. You've helped them with all this practical information and love and support and add a girl and add a boy. And together you've gotten them across the finish line. They now have a baby. It's not over with, is it? There's a whole bunch of new challenges in addition to raising and diapering and losing sleep.
Absolutely. And in terms of someone in our group, I want you to keep with our group. I want you to be an expert. Come help me out,
Right.
Share this. Be a role model. Someone's like, oh, I went through this and this. I can do it too. Someone else.
That's a beautiful word. Let's say it again. Role model. Just by being an example, being there, showing how it can be done is a tremendous gift, isn't it?
And we all went through it. Like you said, memory cells are here forever. Whether you are the host of a group or not. I want everyone has a story. You aren't alone. But yeah, I think what you're kind of hitting on is right now with us, even personally, we have, we're 38 years old and have 2 kids. We have an infant right now, 7-month-old, and we still have 2 embryos personally.
Wow. Let's explain this too. So we've done IVF, we've created embryos, and nowadays we can even make sure those embryos are viable. They actually have normal chromosomes. Roughly half of embryos we create, in fact, have 0 potential because they just don't have normal chromosomes. So couples like you might have some embryos left over that have normal chromosomes. Their siblings have created children, so we know that genetically they have excellent potential. Yet you're 38. You can't just keep transferring embryos.
Yeah.
So what do we do? What do we do with these supernumerary or extra embryos?
Yeah. And well, my really kind of, in my personal life, was hit hard with preeclampsia before and after pregnancy.
That's a severe high blood pressure problem that can kill you.
And hospitalized. And I work in kidney transplant. And I returned to work after my maternity leave, and within a month or 2, I'm on call. I get offers of deceased people, so I have to read the whole profile of people who have died, who have kidneys or organs they want to donate out. And there was a 40-year-old woman, I don't know where, don't know her name, who had died during a C-section from preeclampsia on the same drugs I was on. I don't know if it was IVF or not. Same drugs, already had another baby, and I got it middle of the night. I get this call. So Anthony, I was like, nope, we're done.
This could have been me.
We're done. I am 38 years old. I'm breastfeeding right now. I would be 40 in the next, if I did another transfer. I would be 40. I'd be that person dead on the table.
And the chance of blood pressure, diabetes, keeps going up.
100%. So, I feel selfish and guilty. Not pursuing maybe those embryos. And that's, no one talks about this because everyone just wants that baby.
Right.
And I think Anthony and I have always we want to have this discussion.
We're very open.
And we always had the same idea of what we might want to do with embryos. We just never thought the reality was going to come. And now it has. It's come.
Right.
It's the fight or flight almost of, we all we saw was we want to get pregnant. We want to get pregnant. Well, we've gotten pregnant. We've reached our goal.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, wait. But I was telling her the other day, it's like I've had conversations with the people I work with and, people that I feel close with. And I never thought about that we would have to make this decision of we have 2 embryos left. And had we not had children, I wouldn't think about it differently. But knowing what that little speck on that printout turns into, it's like these are amazing, beautiful children. The potential of what that, and that's something we never thought about, and we have just recently started everyone goes through this. It's done IVF. It's
if they have extra.
Have extra,
yeah. And it's interesting. I know in Missouri there's a special legal status for embryos. They're called special marital assets. Mm-hmm. A house might be a marital asset. Your diamond ring might be but embryos are a special marital asset. In fact, they have additional.
I think I did more paperwork for our embryos than when I bought the house. Business. Yeah, you have to read an initial, and I'm just like, this is in depth. This is like
a notary
and notarized.
A notary, yeah.
And it's just it's just something we never thought about, and now that we're to that point, it's one of the girls I talked with was adopted as a baby, and I wanted her perspective on it because I never want this is 100% our child. I would never want that child, if this is an open adoption in 20 years to come and say, why didn't you want me? With giving an adoption or an embryo up for adoption. It's like, well, it wasn't a matter of want. It was a matter of we couldn't, and you think about all those things, and it's something we never thought about before.
Now everyone understands the term embryo adoption. It's preferred to call it an embryo donation because it is different. But everybody understands what you mean. So these are where, there's kind of a gray area in the semantics here about the terminology. So nobody knows how many frozen embryos are out there. In the United States, it's at least 500,000. It could be 1 million easy worldwide. manyfold more than that. So they're already in repositories. There's some big repository companies here in the United States where they go. You got economies of scale. It's easier to keep them frozen as a group. It's actually safer for the embryos, but it's clear they're not going to be used. So a lot of people in your situation, they just keep them frozen. They kick the can down the road.
Yeah.
And I'll share in our situation, we had some extra embryos. My wife went through this, and my wife is of Catholic origin. I wasn't losing much sleep personally. She was very concerned about these extra embryos, and people will do various things with them, but she wanted to try, even though she was, let's say, like I joke around, 1,000 years old, and the first two almost killed her. We prepared her and had them transferred, and like they say, God sorted them out. She didn't get pregnant, but they're off her plate. She sleeps better.
Yep.
She sleeps better. So that's one. And another option here is you can donate embryos. And it seems easy to say, oh, just donate them. But like you just alluded to, Anthony, when it's your embryo, it's a different can of worms. It's a whole flow of emotions, isn't it?
And you don't think about it until you, like I said, having a child and knowing when they first showed you that picture of the embryo, I looked at it and I was like, okay.
Right.
But now I look at my child and say, this is what you started as.
Yeah.
And we have 2 more of those, like these beautiful children. And it's like, I joke with her. It's like, what if you were at Six Flags 10 years down the road and, there's a kid that looks exactly like you?
Yeah.
And my response is, when was the last time you went to Six Flags? But
there you go. I like you, Leslie. Very good.
Like you say, it's. I mean, you have potentially 2 children that are 100% biologically yours out in this world, and that's where we're at right now. Is how do we go about it?
Yeah, and something else people may not appreciate. There are waiting lists. We don't have an official waiting list like for a kidney, but we are aware. We do this. We've been doing this for decades. We have thousands and thousands of patients. There, people will have a go bag, right? For a kidney transplant, you got a go bag. You get the phone call, you're off to the transplant center. We got people, they don't have go bags, but boy, you tell them we have an extra embryo for donation. There's a waiting list. There's a waiting list. People would love to have them.
Yeah.
Especially if they're genetically tested, ready to go, proven potential. That is an
from,
incredible gift.
Right. The parent side of it, what we've gone through, we want people to have that chance that we luckily had. It is just, it's always going to be on your heart till the day we die.
Right.
We have to make this decision between us.
You're going to go to Six Flags and look for kids.
and his genes are strong. So our kids...
there's no mistaking.
And maybe this is too much science, but the nucleus of that embryo might be yours. But when a woman carries an embryo, she imprints it. She sculpts that embryo, how she eats, how she laughs, so you imbue the woman who imbues her traits on this kid makes it her own in many meaningful, immeasurable ways. Yeah. This isn't just some spiritual, mumbo jumbo here. This is measurable scientific imprinting. It's called. So I don't want anyone to think that if a woman delivers a child, it's not her own or it's someone else's child. It is. If you have a baby in your body and it comes out, it is your child.
You carried it. Yeah.
You carried it. It's your child in every sense of the word. And I have never seen a woman carry a child, even of a different race. We've had black women deliver white. It doesn't matter. Baby comes out of your body. It's your baby.
And we've talked about
in beautiful ways. Maybe even more so.
Yeah.
Right.
I get that.
Yeah.
But I think what Anthony's trying to say is, we've talked about maybe surrogacy even, and something I've mentioned in our group. I know that's a great option for some people, but I think in reality, in a middle class world that we live in, that is
Kids are
out
expensive.
of the question.
Surrogacy. Google how much it costs to raise a child. It's in the 300,000s.
Well, even just the process of surrogacy. I think the celebrities are making it so I did it. I did.
Attainable.
So you think we can do it? Columbia, Missouri. That's probably the typical person. Columbia, Missouri could never afford actual surrogacy is.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh, just do a surrogate. The media has made it to be so doable, and I think in our actual world, it's extremely out there.
A very small percentage of people.
Yeah, when you're making $10 million a movie, it's not that big of a deal. Or your helicopter, your Monday helicopter goes to your Tuesday jet. That's a different world. It's a different universe from us. So you two are still going through these, let's say, challenging or difficult decisions, even though you have your children. It still lingers.
And I will for the rest of our lives.
It will for the rest of your lives. And you can share this experience with people in this area or through Zoom anywhere in the country, even Columbia, South Carolina.
And I do tell them, like,
experience.
If you need a group, come. It's Zoom by myself. It's South Carolina folks.
It's funny you say that. Just a couple days ago, I had a couple from South Carolina. They found my surgical services on YouTube. They're flying here in a few months for me to do their surgery from South Carolina, in fact. Yeah,
it always amazes me working, downstairs, seeing how far people travel and to the extent people will go. And that's what I tell them, like, don't give up. Yeah. Like, you've already, you're coming from 4 hours away.
Yeah.
Like, it's a long process. And, I joked earlier, like, you see those new people the first time and they're just so giddy and so happy. And, you just want to say, don't get your hopes up but you don't know.
You just don't know.
When they come down, and they've lost one, they're always crying. And I just want to grab them and say, don't give up.
Give
like,
a big
I've been
hug.
there, done that. Like, not me personally, but she has. And it's like, don't give up. Like, it's so worth it.
We give a lot of hugs.
Yeah.
We give a lot of hugs if people will take them. These are very difficult decisions. So, is there anything about Resolve or the services you do or any other pearls of wisdom or suggestions or advice, Leslie and Anthony, that you would have for people undergoing fertility treatment, experiencing the difficulties of infertility?
I always just tell people, just seek out opinions, be your own advocate. There's going to be so many questions along the way that you're going to ask yourself, keep yourself up at night. Ask them, ask me, ask your doctor, ask your nurses. And there's, like Anthony said, people travel all over the country for these services. If you're not comfortable where you are, go somewhere else. Try second opinions, third opinions, fourth opinions.
Yes.
Do whatever. You need to feel comfortable. These people are in your private areas. You need to feel comfortable. And everything can be so different. Everything can be so tailored. You need to seek that out for yourself. And we're always here to help. Some people will come to me and ask, well, my husband's having this experience. I just give them Anthony's phone number.
Right.
I want the men to get support too. And Anthony, isn't as involved as a founder of the group with me, but he is willing to speak, and I just want men to be represented as well. And just come to me, and if you have nothing to say, that's fine. Just be there.
Yeah.
You said it best. It was a while back when I talked to you, and we had a good conversation. And it's always stuck in the back of my head. It's even when I joke about pharmacies in Columbia, like Kilgore's, D&H, and ourselves, yes, we're competition, but at the end of the day, we're just here for you. And as she says, being an advocate or going and asking other questions, at the end of the day, everyone in your practice, your goal is just, and you said that, you said, my goal is you to get pregnant. However that is, I'm happy for you. Just whatever it takes, whoever you see, however you do it, there's a different route for everyone. Like she said, it's just it's finding that perfect balance.
Yeah, and except in major metropolitan areas, there's a shortage of fertility doctors.
Yeah, absolutely.
They like to go to sunny places, but on beaches and whatnot. But there is so much work, and it's ever growing. Almost every fertility clinic you call up, it's several month wait or longer to get in. So there's plenty of business. Business should not be a driving factor, and almost everyone I know in the field just wants our patients to be successful.
And an open line of communication. I was not good at that, and I'm tried to get better. But between the husband and wife, because it is such a distressing, emotional roller coaster, it's I tell people and I always joke with people when they come to get Clomid, the woman. I joke with the husband. I said, be patient with her because she's probably gonna be a little crazy for a week. And when you were on Clomid, you did cry at a commercial, and you said, I know I'm crying because of the medicine, and I can't help it. So I remember that. But it's nice. It's an open line of communication between the spouses.
and have people who've been through it to share their experiences is very valuable as well. Well, thank you two, for sharing your time today, for sharing your intimate personal story with us, and your ongoing generosity, sharing your time and your experience with people locally here to get through this infertility treatment journey. So thank you so much. What a pleasure talking to you today.
Yes, thank you so much. We're always here.
And I tell people once they have kids, it never ends. I don't think we've slept a full night for 6 months.